Yeah, I'm Kirsten Flory. I'm chair of the Lawrence Chamber Board of Directors. I want to officially welcome you this morning, and hopefully this will be not a future virtual event, but lovely to see all of you today virtually, and thank you for attending. I first and foremost want to thank our sponsor, which is Black Hills Energy. We are so thankful for your support, not only as your chamber membership, but supporting this event today. I also want to thank our delegates for attending today. I know every year we sure appreciate not only your input in this event and our ability to connect with you, but what you do for our community. So I'm going to keep it short and sweet. Without further ado, I'm going to turn the reins over to Hugh Carter, who's the Vice President of External Affairs for the Chamber. Thank you.
Thank you, Kirsten. Good morning, everybody. It's great to see we've got a good, strong turnout this morning, even for a virtual event. I think we're about 70 folks have signed on so far. Anticipate we'll probably have closer to 100 before we're done here. And many, of course, have reached out and will be watching this via a recording. So I think we'll have lots of eyes on this morning's event. Again, just one more time, please keep yourself on mute if you can. That would be much appreciated. I'd like to welcome our 6 state delegates, Senators Marcy Francisco and Tom Holland, Representatives Barbara Ballard, Boog Heiberger, Mike Amix, and newcomer Christina Haswood. Welcome to all of you. Thank you so much for being here. Given that we've had to go virtual with this event, I won't ask everybody to, all of our local officials and leaders that are on the call this morning to stand up and be recognized as we typically do. But I saw the registrations, and it certainly appears that we have as good a turnout as ever from our local leadership here. So I want to thank all of you for joining us as well. Before we get going, I usually have just a quick few comments to make. And like everybody, probably I was fairly distracted this week with the traumatizing events that were happening at the Capitol, and I didn't really get around to that until last evening. And so I was thinking, what do I want to say this year? And I went ahead and pulled up last year's notes just to, as a starting point, kind of think of what we covered. And it really struck me. I want to pull out, quote from last year's legislative priorities breakfast, and that is local leadership matters more than ever right now. The trends of social and political fragmentation and splintering partisan politics are raging on the national stage, and I believe it's going to get worse before it gets better. Well, things certainly did get worse on the national level, and I think I speak for everyone on this call when I say that I hope the events at the nation's capital this week will represent the bottom. We got to come together as a country and do better, and I believe that we will. But we can focus locally is what we can do. Fortunately, in stark contrast to the national storyline, in Douglas County, I believe the best of our community has been on display this past year. The way we've come together to meet the challenges of the pandemic through a lens of equity and with a focus on our most vulnerable, it makes me more proud than ever to call this place home. We still have a ways to go to get through this. There are businesses, institutions, jobs, families, individuals that are still at great risk. But with the advent of vaccines, therapeutics, and most importantly, the continued teamwork of groups like those that are represented on this call and our fantastic local safety net organizations, I think there's a bright light at the end of this tunnel, finally. So with that, I just want to say on behalf of the chamber and take this opportunity once again to thank the leadership on this call, not just for your partnership and your willingness to serve your community, but for the manner in which you conduct yourselves in that service. Thank you very much. Now, normally I would tell you to reach down under your seats or somewhere at your table and pull up all 5 of the legislative agendas that we would have placed at your seats. But like many things, we're adjusting. Travis, I did watch him send an email out yesterday afternoon to everybody that was registered with all of the agendas. Unfortunately, I'm aware that those are somewhere out in the interwebs and somehow the attachments didn't make it. So fear not, you can reach or see all of these in one place, print them if you'd like. They are on the chamber website. Lindsay's going to be sending links to the recording of this event, as well as links to the legislative agendas via social media, via chamber email channels. And so keep an eye out for those things. But you can go to lawrencechamber.com/priorities, and you'll find all of them there. So get on with it. Let me quickly run through how this works for those that have not attended this event in the past. We will have a total of 13 speakers this morning. And over the next 25 minutes, you're going to hear from representatives of the city, the county, the chamber, the school district, and the University of Kansas. After those speakers take about 5 minutes each to touch on their hopes for this upcoming legislative session, we'll take another 30 minutes to get feedback from each of our state delegates. So with that, let's begin. I'd like to introduce our first speaker this morning. It's my pleasure to introduce the mayor of the city of Lawrence, Brad Finkelby.
Thank you, Hugh. It's an honor to represent Lawrence as the mayor at this event and to speak today on behalf of Vice Mayor Shipley, my fellow commissioners, and the entire city. You know, the city has a long history of working closely with our excellent Douglas County legislative delegation on issues of mutual concern, and we look forward to continuing that this year. Thank you, all of you, for your dedicated service now more than ever on behalf of our community. To begin with, I would echo the words that I always remember now Representative Amick saying every time he presented at this event, which I've been to many times. I think he always said, our request is simple, please do no harm. And well, you can't say it better than that. Please do no harm. But beyond that overarching request, you know, we understand as elected leaders, the greatest challenges that we face beyond pandemics usually deal with the balancing of resources related to constituents' wants and needs. In trying to reach that balance here in Lawrence, we have recently adopted a strategic plan which focuses on 5 broad outcomes. We have thus categorized our legislative priorities to align with these 5 outcomes. And those are unmistakable identity, strong and welcoming neighborhoods, safe and secure, prosperity and economic security, and infrastructure, asset management, and connectivity. Of course, our complete legislative priority statement is available, and I can't go through all of it, but obviously I know each one of you will and take a look at that. But I would like to just highlight a few priorities in the time I have remaining. And again, they'll be separated by the categories in our strategic plan. First, unmistakable identity. The 3 issues I'd like to highlight there. First is redistricting. The city of Lawrence supports Governor Kelly's call for the creation of a nonpartisan commission to assist with redrawing state legislative and congressional districts. The city does not support anything which would divide our county into more than one congressional district. Liquor Control Act. We support codifying the executive orders signed by the governor during the COVID-19 pandemic, which relaxed certain restrictions governing the sale and transportation of alcoholic beverages. These have been vital tools used by our businesses, especially many of our downtown businesses, and we hope that they are allowed to continue. They have been a success. Universities. You know, the city will strive to collaborate and support both the University of Kansas and Haskell Indian Nations University on their legislative agendas. Of course, as it relates to the state, the city supports increased state funding for higher education in Kansas. The support for KU is the support for our city. We also support legislation that would allow members of federally recognized Native American nations or tribes to receive in-state resident tuition rates to attend our public secondary post-secondary institutions. And finally, Peaslee Tech. The city supports the legislation being pushed forward to enable the countywide election in November of 2021 to establish a special taxing district to provide permanent funding for Peaslee Tech. Our second outcome is strong and welcoming neighborhoods. And on that front, first, I'd like to talk about criminal justice reform. The city supports the recommendations from the Governor's Commission on Racial Equity and Justice, and we also support reducing criminal penalties on non-person crimes. The Kansas Act Against Discrimination. We support legislation to codify the recent United States Supreme Court decision in Bostock versus Clayton County, which held that discrimination on the basis of homosexuality and transgender status is prohibited by Title VII. We also support amending the definition of race in the act to include traits historically associated with race, such as hair texture and protective hairstyles. Our third outcome is safe and secure. On that, I'd like to highlight, first, local health orders. We support local control of our health orders. We believe our health department, our county, and our health officer have done a great job, and we'd like to allow them to continue to have the tools and resources they need to make the orders specific for the localities. We'd also like to have more ability to properly enforce those orders. Mental health funding. State funding for our community-based mental health services must be restored and expanded to address the growing needs for these vital services. These services are more vital than ever, as the impact of COVID has shown, and we must increase funding. Medicaid expansion. Our city and our community-owned hospital, LMH, fully support expansion of Medicaid. Prosperity and economic security is our fourth outcome. First, CAPERS. The city does not support any efforts to reduce CAPERS funding or to postpone payments to the CAPERS system. The state should make payments to reduce unfunded CAPERS liabilities. And alternative property valuation models. We do not support any methods of property tax assessment not based on accepted and statutory methods, and we hope the legislature looks closely at what's been going on at BODA on some of those topics. And finally, our fifth outcome is infrastructure, asset management, and connectivity. And we're going to focus here on transportation. It might be little surprise that the expansion of the west leg of the South Lawrence Trafficway is a high priority for us, and we would request funding in the 2022 budget to get that process moving. However, we also support the use of forward funds for alternative transportation projects, such as multimodal funding for things like the Lawrence Loop, safe routes to schools, and complete streets. And finally, the City of Lawrence encourages the state's involvement to help us increase the use of public transit between Lawrence and the neighboring cities to reduce congestion on the state highways. That's a short summary of some of our priorities. You can see the rest of them, but thank you so much for being here and all the work you'll do on behalf of Douglas County in the coming session.
Thank you, Brad. And next we'll have, speaking on behalf of the Douglas County Commission, is County Commission Chair Patrick Kelly.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for being here. And thanks for the Chamber for inviting the Douglas County Commission to visit with you this morning about our legislative priorities. I'm certainly hesitant to use the most overused adjective this year, unprecedented, but I'm curious about this situation. I know you're thinking I'm referencing the legislative breakfast Zoom, but instead I'm speaking of the Douglas County Commission. On Wednesday, Commissioners Michelle DeRusso and Nancy Thelman adjourned their final meeting, and on Monday, Commissioners-elect Shannon Portillo and Shannon Reed will be sworn in. Hugh, I am sure you were hoping from someone else, but today, on this day, I'm all you got. So seriously, it's been an honor to serve with Commissioners DeRusso and Thelman, and I know we all appreciate their service to the community. And I welcome Commissioners Shannon Portillo and Shannon Reed, and I look forward to working together to strengthen Douglas County. I know all former and recent elected commissioners stand together in condemning what took place at our nation's capital on Wednesday. We have much work to do to buttress our democracy and confront and eradicate racial injustice and come together as a nation. In Douglas County, we cannot be complacent, and Wednesday's unconscionable and unforgivable actions are yet another unfortunate reminder of the work that we have to do. Speaking of work we have to do, We have quite a bit to do here in Douglas County. And in order to do that, we're going to need some help from the state of Kansas. We are appreciative of the cooperation of our legislative delegation, and I know our entire community is grateful for the state funding that's been provided for the treatment and recovery campus of Douglas County. This fall, we opened 2 housing projects, transitions and the cottages, and construction of the crisis center is currently underway. Our county's investment in integrated single entry behavioral health crisis services depends on securing ongoing annual funding for the crisis center. State funding for a small portion of community crisis services will ensure a coordinated effort to provide crisis services, as well as providing treatment and services for individuals who do not have insurance or are not eligible for other funding. We support the state's finalization of the state's Crisis Intervention Act to address the additional needs of our crisis center. As Brad shared, a year ago at this event, I shared Douglas County's request to recognize the safety concerns of the South Lawrence Trafficway. We asked the state of Kansas to protect those using this local highway and increase our economic vitality by including the expansion of the South Lawrence Trafficway in the state's next 10-year transportation plan. Again, we appreciate the progress made through that commitment expressed in 2020 to fully fund the Eisenhower Transportation Plan, which includes the expansion of the SLT. And I asked the legislature to honor that commitment. The impact of COVID-19 on the state's budget may cause some to look to reductions or transfers of the transportation program funding. We feel that this action would be short-sighted, as sustained funding of our transportation infrastructure promotes safety, economic recovery, and mobility for our state and region. Finally, I want to draw your attention to 3 additional areas supported by Douglas County where we could use some additional assistance from the state of Kansas. We have made tremendous strides in providing alternatives to incarceration, including pretrial release, house arrest, substance abuse diversion for women, and specialty courts for behavioral health and substance abuse. In order to continue to meet Douglas County's desire to not only avoid jail expansion, but lower our jail population, we advocate for measures to reduce incarceration, eliminate the criminalization of poverty, increase funding for community-based services, and address racial inequities in the criminal justice system. Additionally, we encourage the legislature to allocate increased funding for the Kansas State Board of Indigent Defense Service in order to reduce public defender turnover and caseloads while implementing a client-centered holistic defense model. As our community looks to recover from COVID-19, retraining our workforce and expanding employment opportunities for those in Douglas County will be critical. While we do not know how our community will respond, we do ask, similar to the city, to support enabling legislation authorizing a countywide election to form a special district to provide stable and sustainable funding for Peaslee Tech. In closing, we want to share our appreciation for all those who are working on the front lines to combat COVID-19, especially our first responders, healthcare professionals, and public officials. As you know, COVID-19 has a long-lasting and unforeseen impact both on our public health and the economy. We support increased funding and resources for the coordination of public health response, including the deployment of a COVID-19 vaccine. We need resources for our public health workforce, disease investigation, and other tactics to mitigate disease spread, as well as resources to support a successful vaccine rollout in our community. Of course, we have another 11 other important initiatives, but this is the end of my time, and you can read the Douglas County legislative statement that you were provided. Our commission appreciates your service, the people of Kansas and our community, and hope you will share these priorities with your colleagues in Topeka. Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. Our next speaker will be representing the Chamber as the chair of the Chamber's Government and Community Affairs Committee, Paul Davis.
Thank you very much, Hugh, and good morning to everybody. I'm very honored to be the new chair of the Government Community Affairs Committee for the Chamber. And I first and foremost want to thank our legislators. Having been in your shoes for 12 years, I know firsthand the sacrifices that all of you make, and we're very appreciative of everything that you do for our community. And we know that this is going to be, not necessarily because of the issues, but because of the environment, one of the most challenging sessions that you have ahead of you. And we wish you all the best, and we want you to know how grateful we are for your service. The Chamber spends a lot of time developing these legislative priorities. We have numerous committees that look at this. Our board looks at this, and we try to get as much input from our membership as we possibly can. And I hope that all of you will take some time and look through this document, because there's a lot of very good information here about what our priorities are. And I'm going to just try to hit some of the highlights of those priorities and not talk for longer than I probably should, and longer than I usually did when I was in the legislature at this breakfast. But our bread and butter is economic development. We are trying to grow our local economy, to create jobs and help our businesses prosper. And there are a number of state programs that are really essential to that mission. The HPIP program, PEAK program, and some of the other incentives are things that Steve Kelly and our economic development professionals vitally need in order to fill their mission. One of the things the Chamber is very supportive of is the Department of Commerce's effort to develop a new statewide economic development plan. This has been an initiative of Governor Kelly and Secretary Toland, and we are very supportive of that effort. Speaking of the Department of Commerce, one of our priorities also is to move the Division of Travel and Tourism back into the Department of Commerce. As many of you know, that was where it was housed for many years. It was moved over to Wildlife and Parks, and we believe that its natural home is really in the Department of Commerce. One of the other things I want to mention under economic development that I think is important for Lawrence is we used to have the Kansas Bioscience Authority, which allowed us to really utilize the natural talents that we have in the business community here in Lawrence and at the University of Kansas to be able to help grow our bioscience economic capabilities. And we lost that, and we're hoping that we can gain that back in some form. And I hope that's something that you will take a look at here in the future. Under the heading of education and workforce readiness, there is a major issue that I think that most of you are aware of is the legislation that authorizes the Douglas County Commission to call for an election to establish a special taxing district to support Peaslee Tech. This is a very important issue to the Chamber. Hugh and many other people at the Chamber have spent a lot of time and effort trying to make sure that Peaslee Tech is going to be successful. And this is something that is really vital to the long-term financial stability of Peaslee Tech. And we hope it's something that we can get accomplished this legislative session. Another initiative that's important to Lawrence and is important to the University of Kansas is the extension of the University Engineering Initiative Act. This was something that was created, I think, about 10 years ago, and it is up for renewal. It has allowed the University of Kansas and other Regents institutions to be able to expand their engineering schools and to be able to train more engineers, and it's something that the Chamber is very strongly supportive. Speaking of the university, one of the things that we want to see is the university's appropriations restored to their pre-pandemic levels. It's no secret that the university has a lot of financial challenges right now, and we know the University of Kansas is the major economic development driver in this community and throughout the state, and we appreciate your efforts to help restore those appropriation levels. We need to have a lot of collaboration between all of our educational stakeholders in the area of workforce training. You talk to any person that owns a business and they will tell you that workforce training is such a major issue, and whatever we can do in that area is going to be very much appreciated by business owners. We also want to see compliance with the Kansas Supreme Court's ruling on public school funding. That's something that's very critical to the school district here. In the area of taxation, the Chamber has always supported a balanced and stable tax structure. Many of you are aware of the three-legged stool that was established by Tony Redwood and Chuck Crider many years ago, and I think has served the state very well. And we want to make sure as we look at that, we also have a very competitive pro-business tax structure. One of the things that's important to a lot of Main Street businesses is that we have a fair and consistent process for the collection of sales tax on goods purchased through the internet, so that our businesses on Massachusetts Street can compete with the Amazons of the world. There are several things in the tax area that we have opposed traditionally. Sales tax on professional services, an increase in the state sales tax, and also asking employers to do more than what they've already done, which is significant in terms of unemployment withholdings. COVID recovery is a new area, obviously, on our priorities, and hopefully one that will not be there next year. We want to see the governor's emergency powers extended. That was done the other day, I think, through the end of January, but further extensions may be necessary, and that's going to be important. In the area of our CARES Act monies, we want to be able to continue to have the ability to reimburse hospitals and other community health providers for their significant costs, and also see expanded broadband coverage, which is something that's happening already, and we want to continue to be able to see. In the area of healthcare, expansion of Medicaid continues to be a big priority for the Chamber. We know what that means for Lawrence Memorial Hospital and many other healthcare providers. We'd also like to see an increase in Medicaid rates to ensure that our healthcare providers are being adequately compensated for their services. Burton Ash is an important part of our community and has taken a lot of financial hits over the years. And one of the priorities we have is to see that their level of funding be restored to 2007 levels, 14 years ago, hard to believe. In the area of transportation and infrastructure, we applaud your efforts to pass a new comprehensive transportation plan. The Eisenhower Legacy IKE program is significant for the state, and it's significant for Lawrence. It's going to allow us to hopefully complete the western extension of the South Lawrence Traffic Way. And one of the things that I think is going to be critically important as we go forward is that we continue to provide the funding structure for the state transportation plan, and we quote, close the bank of KDOT, as Governor Kelly has talked about. In the area of legal reform, the Chamber is very committed to criminal justice reform. This is something that hasn't always been on our agenda, but it's something that is important to the Chamber. We want to be able to reduce prison populations, address the racial disparity that we have in our prison system, and make sure that people who are coming out of that system have the ability to re-enter the workforce. We want to make sure that our court system is adequately funded. And as a result of the decision that came from the Supreme Court several years ago, we want to make sure that we see a cap on economic damages restored by the legislature. Our last section is energy. We see energy as a key ingredient of economic development. We want to be able to continue to grow the renewable energy industry here in Lawrence. We want to be able to see increased investments in energy efficiency that can help our business owners. And we'd like to see a comprehensive long-term state energy plan, which is one of the things I know that Governor Kelly is committed to. And lastly, electric rates has been a topic of discussion at the legislature, and we want to make sure that our business owners are being treated fair and equitably as we look at how electric rates are being allocated. So thank you very much for the time this morning, and thank you for your service. And I hope that you will look to the Chamber as a resource as you make very important decisions in this legislative session.
Thank you, Paul. Next speaker this morning will be the chair of USD 497 Board of Directors, Kelly Jones.
Good morning. So each month of my term as USD 497 board president has brought challenges unimaginable to me when I ran for the board 3 years ago. We are balancing the in-school hybrid and remote learning formats. Not being fully in person has negatively impacted kids, teachers, administrators, and their families' mental health. It may mean that child abuse has gone unreported. There may be widespread learning losses, and we see caregivers having to drop out of the workforce and falling deeper into poverty. We've learned that we can operate schools safely when community spread is under control. In those cases, evidence suggests that schools may not be a vector for the virus, but it presumes that we are prioritizing mitigation approaches like masking, social distancing, and washing hands. In a district our size, we are among the state's larger districts. Adherence to social distancing requires additional staff and space that hopefully will not be a part of Superintendent Lewis's planning equation for the 2021-2022 school year. They have plagued our current school year. So in mid-December, when the news came out, the teachers and our K-12 staff were to receive COVID-19 vaccine during the second phase of the state's rollout plan, I felt hope and relief. Even with the vaccine on the horizon, Kansas public schools continue to need additional support for safe and successful operations during the pandemic. We cannot be lulled away from the reality because the vaccine is on the horizon. The USD 497 board urges legislators to consider hold harmless provisions to support school districts through significant and likely temporary financial losses they are experiencing in enrollment, waitings, transportation costs, staffing, and remote learning needs due to the COVID-19 pandemic. For periods of remote learning, the board has had to close the digital divide and facilitate access to stable internet and provide necessary technology, which we have had success doing, but not without significant effort, resources, and facilitation. As our representatives, we ask that you advocate for continued expansion of support for universal access to high quality broadband services to support the learning needs of our students and families during and after the pandemic. Routinely, educators share with me that there are aspects of remote learning they'll be using moving forward, even after the pandemic. So closing that digital divide is not a temporary need, it is a permanent one. There are instances where the state requires that districts continue this year as they would in any other year. This can make sense in terms of insisting on rigor and high standard, but there are instances when doing so negatively impacts educational outcomes and pedagogy. We urge the legislature to provide flexibility to districts in areas such as instructional hours so that remote learning options can be structured to support good instructional pedagogy in remote learning environments, and so that we can increase in-person learning, increase teacher plan time, and decrease instances of teachers instructing both the students in front of them and those working from home. Amending instructional hour requirements can be achieved at no cost to the state, and hopefully is something that our legislators will advocate for. I ask that you consider closing the digital divide. And that, when I did that, is an example of an inequity that the pandemic highlights. COVID has negatively impacted all of us, but it has not done so uniformly. Families with historically and currently marginalized identities are suffering worsening educational inequities, economic burdens, chronic stressors, and disparities in health outcomes. These things are exacerbated by school closings or limited access to in-person school. As a board president, I am accountable to that fact. And along with my board colleagues, we endeavor to make sure that all USD 497 students have access to the key resources that lead to better outcomes in schools. We ask that you join us as representatives and advocate for stable, reliable, adequate, and equitable funding of the current school finance formula as approved by the Gannon Court, and encourage the legislature to adopt tax policies that will generate revenue significant to fully fund the school finance formula for current and future generations of Kansas students. We ask that you demand that special education services be fully funded at the required 92% of excess costs, and that you support expanding funding for universal preschool and before and after school programs. We benefit from the guidance and expertise of Dr. Lewis, Dr. Stubblefield, the Lawrence Education Association executive team, the district equity facilitators in the district, and our board and equity committees. They elevate historically marginalized students, staff, and their families. Their dedication is something to see. And if you're watching their work, you can't stop yourself, you raise your hand, you ask, how can I help? And supporting these initiatives are ways that you can do that. A close second to the opportunity gap in the single biggest challenge contest is the critical teacher shortage. Some Kansas districts are placing unqualified teachers in positions that they should not be because they cannot find candidates, particularly within special education. Other districts are seeing small teacher candidate pools get smaller. Recent data coming out of the Kansas Department of Education reports significant increases in vacancies across Kansas. USD 497 HR department does an excellent job of recruiting educators, but at some point, like during the pandemic, the shortage pushes up against Lawrence too. And so we ask the legislator to support recruitment and retention of high quality teachers, administrators, and support staff. We ask that you support a long-term sustained commitment to state funding for CAPERS, including changes to make CAPERS more attractive to retirement programs to support recruitment and retention of high qualified teachers. We also ask that you support reinstating the previous working after retirement laws to allow CAPERS retired staff to continue working without penalty. And finally, many of you will know that I am a licensed mental health worker. This academic year burdens students, teachers, staff, and administrators. My colleague on the board, Carol Kutu-Blackwood, often brings up emotional well-being during COVID. For all staff and students, it's upon the board to allocate resources for evidence-based, culturally and linguistically appropriate trauma-informed school-based mental health services. So we ask that legislators support and advocate for increased support and community partnerships to meet the mental health needs of students and staff. I've heard others echo this, but we would like to see increases in funding for Burn-Nash. And additionally, we would like you to support increased funding for school and community-based mental health services that include additional school counselors, social workers, and psychologists. So my great thank you to our representatives. I know that you have our back, and it makes my job much easier. And to Representative Haswood, welcome. I look forward to seeing what you do this year.
Thank you, Kelly. And our final speaker for this portion of the event is KU's Vice Chancellor for Public Affairs and Economic Development, David Cook.
Thank you, Hugh. And again, David Cook, I'm, as Hugh just mentioned, the Vice Chancellor of Public Affairs and Economic Development. I'm relatively new. I started May 1st. I've worked with KU for a long time. I used to oversee the KU Edwards campus in Overland Park most recently. So a couple of quick things. In my public affairs role, I'm trying to do the difficult task of replacing Reggie Robinson, but thought I'd just mention that in case that would be helpful for you to understand my role. On the economic development side, that's a brand new focus for the university in this kind of a position. And so on another day, I'd love to talk with all of you about that role and would love to follow up at any time. Also probably worth mentioning, especially our elected officials. You all know Kelly Witten as our state relations person. Kelly's been on maternity leave, but she gets back this next week and is gonna, so you'll be seeing as much of me as her this next session. And again, thank you all for what you do in supporting us. I really appreciate it. I know the university really appreciates it. And I look forward to working with you this next session. Now, a lot of people are teasing me that I don't know the holidays are over, so I apologize. We'll get the act together at the cookhouse here and get the Christmas tree out of the background sooner rather than later. But anyway, we're starting to see the new year off a little slow. There are really two priorities for the University of Kansas that I want to mention, and they've kind of been touched on a couple of times. Paul Davis mentioned them both as well. So, and they're listed right there in the state legislative priorities, and they relate to restoring our budget funding to last year levels, and then also the University Engineering Initiative Act. So as you all know, as was mentioned earlier, as we're all dealing with, budgets are pretty difficult. And for the university, we kind of got hit on pretty much all of our revenue streams this last year, and we still have tough times ahead. One of the concerns we had late this fall was when the governor's division of budget had come out and recommended a 10% budget cut to universities. And that also included a 3% allotment from the previous legislative session. So you add it together, it's a 13% cut. Meanwhile, you know, we're struggling. Our enrollment was a little bit down, actually pretty good. But, you know, all of our auxiliaries, housing, dining, research, and all the rest are taking some difficult cuts as well. And so it feels like we're kind of getting hit and beat up. And so I'd say the positive side of that is we were fortunate to have a couple of meetings with the governor and her team late fall to explain these issues in a little more detail. By we, I mean the chancellor and I, but also President Meyer from K-State and Sue Peterson, their government relations person. And so I just want to mention that, you know, KU and K-State are working together on these issues because we think they're important and trying to be proactive. And so we will see. I think the next milestone is going to be the governor's state of the address this next week and see how that all goes. And then for us anyway, it's going to be really seeing where that number hits. And then enrollment, we're starting February 1st, of course, for this next session. Enrollment is going to be challenging, and that's another spot. And then frankly, seeing what the federal government does for us. So we don't know exactly what our budget situation is until a few of those things hit, but we're pretty sure it's going to be challenging and difficult. And so your support in helping us restore budget funding is going to be really, really important to the university. And so I can go into a lot more detail. There's a lot of numbers and things there, but just wanted to at least mention the budget situation is something that it's going to be really important to us. The other one is the University Engineering Initiative Act. And so about 10 years ago, I think technically 9 years ago, state leaders came together and recognized that we had a problem, a workforce and talent problem around engineering. And so they had the vision to bring together the University of Kansas, Kansas State University, and also Wichita State to say we need to invest in our schools of engineering to increase the number of engineering graduates in the state. And so they did that. And so the Engineering Initiative Act brings together $3.5 million per school annually. And so you add it up, that's $10.5 million. Each of the schools matches it. And so next thing, you're getting up to $21 million a year investing in this really important workforce and talent issue. And so this was a 10-year initiative. We have this year and then next year, and then those dollars go away. By all accounts, this last year, the goal was to graduate 870 engineers. In 2021, the Act allowed us all three collectively to graduate 1,365 graduates. So it's been very successful, and we'd like to have it continue. And so you're going to hear us talking more about that this next year. It's funded, I think worth noting, out of the Expanded Lottery Act Revenue Fund, not the State General Fund. And everybody's a little nervous. That's the fund where the casino money goes into, right? And so not sure how many people have been going to the casino this last year, with all that's going on with COVID, but so we're kind of working through some of that. And so we think this is incredibly important to the universities, to the state, and frankly, to the region. One thing we're going to try even harder to do with those dollars is to make sure when our students graduate, our engineering students, they're staying in the state of Kansas more than we've ever tried. And I will tell you, when I'm wearing my economic development hat, that's going to be a new focus for the university as well. So we want our graduates to, stay in Lawrence, stay in Douglas County, stay in the state, and even stay in the region as a priority for the university in a way that we've not quite thought about before. So that's important for the Engineering Initiative Act, but it's important for the university as well. So anyway, I know 5 minutes goes fast, but the budget situation is really important to us. Would be happy to talk with any of you about that further. And the Engineering Initiative Act is a really important one, I think, for the state and for the university, and would be happy to talk with any of you about that further as well. And so Hugh, thank you for giving me the opportunity to present, and I'll mute my mic here.
Thank you, Dave. Don't feel bad about the Christmas decorations. The Carter household has adopted a policy that the decorations come down when the Chiefs either lose or win the Super Bowl. So
I like that.
So next, thank you everyone for those comments. We're running just a bit over here now, so we may not have time for audience questions at the end, but if you all would, feel free to either contact me or put them in the chat, and we will get your questions to our legislators and get you answers if we're not able to get to them today. So next, what we'd like to do is have each of our state delegates just take 4 or 5 minutes to let us know, first respond to anything as you would like to that you've heard here this morning, but also let us know what committees or other leadership positions that you hold this year, and any other thoughts that you'd care to share. So let's start here with Senator Marcy Francisco.
Good morning. And thanks to all of you, and thanks to everyone in the community for what you've been doing. I agree, the community response this past year has been exceptional. And I want to thank all of you who are here this morning or listening later, particularly those of you who worked on the legislative requests. This information is incredibly helpful in our representing you and identifying issues for discussion. But it's also good to see how much cooperation there is between the city, the county, our school district, the universities, and the chamber. So forgive me because I'm not going to be able to touch on everything that's been mentioned, but I have heard the breadth and depth of your concerns. So as you know, there's lots of challenges in the upcoming legislative session. I'm pleased that I will remain as the ranking member of the Utilities Committee and as a member of the Ag and Natural Resources Committee, and also on the Joint Committee for State Building Construction. But I'm also pleased to be a new member of the Ethics and Election Committee and the ranking member of the Senate's Local Government Committee. So I'm glad to be getting back to that, and hope that will help me represent our community. Monthly revenue continues to exceed projections, so we're not in as difficult a position as we had expected. The current fiscal year will have a positive balance of almost 400 million, but that's below the requirement. The projection for this next fiscal year is in the red, but I'm confident that's going to be addressed in the governor's budget. So look forward to hearing that, and that's a good time to get back and see where we are. Focus on funding that people discussed certainly mentioned the stability of CAPERS, and Governor Kelly has helped restore funding. The payments to retirees are assured, but we also have to be alert to the concerns of maintaining that state funding at the current rate. I'm hoping we can find a way to shore up on our unemployment funds without putting additional stress on our businesses. Perhaps we should consider using some of the additional income tax collection for that. We need to continue to make improvements to our unemployment benefit system as we shore up those funds. There may be a hearing on a tax bill as early as next Tuesday. I'm hoping Senator Holland might talk more about that. I do support the reinstatement of the food sales tax rebate. So lots of things I'm going to agree with. Transportation funding, the extension of emergency powers. One thing I learned on that interim committee is that cities are really not part of our state structure. So we need to figure out a way to better include cities in the Emergency Management Act. Some mention of the 911 funds. I do serve on the 911 Next Generation Council. I'm hoping the city and county will support training and certification of dispatchers, and there's a request to make those positions identified as first responders. Support criminal justice reform, and pleased that Representative Heiberger is part of our delegation. Support public health, and I'm delighted to welcome Representative-elect Haswood to our delegation because of her background in public health. I'm excited about the news with the funding for the crisis center. I want to recognize all the work that Representative Ballard does in support of mental health and social services. I am pleased to learn of the support for allowing an election for the establishment of the taxing district to support the Peasley Center. I do recognize we need access to high quality broadband. We think of it now as what needs to be a public utility, but unfortunately, unlike telephone and electricity, no public framework for this was created. It's been provided by competitive businesses. So that's a big tangle to work through. Want to focus in the utility committee on costs of energy and renewable energy. But I turned on my computer to look at how much wind is generating right now, and it's just over 7%. So when I plug in my car, I've got a new electric car to drive to the Capitol. I've put on my unmistakably Lawrence tag, and I'm trying to make sure that I only plug it in when our wind is above 40. So check that out on the Southwest Power Pool. Again, if you haven't had an opportunity to ask questions, send me an email. I'll try to get back to you and appreciate this opportunity.
Thank you, Senator Francisco. And next we'll hear from Senator Tom Holland.
Well, Hugh, good morning. Thank you so much, Lawrence Chamber and others, the sponsors, Black Hills, for putting this on. I will be very brief. I too am very much happy to be going back to the Kansas legislature this year. I once again will be the ranking minority member in the Senate Assessment, Taxation, as well as Commerce committees. I'll be very just jump in here briefly talk about my major pieces of legislation this year, and then I have some follow-up specifically for Paul and Hugh that I want to talk about. First of all, my concern, which is incredibly unresponsive to its citizens, this year I will be introducing a citizens ballot initiative where citizens can directly petition to put both basically enact statutes and constitutional amendments to Kansas law. The record or lack thereof speaks for itself. The inability to pass Medicaid expansion, the inability of the legislature to recognize citizens' cries for true, meaningful property tax relief. We need to do something better. And so this will be a way that I hope to work with our citizens to make the legislature more responsive to its needs. I will be once again reintroducing as a committee bill the Golden Years Homestead Property Tax Freeze Program. Once again, this was the #1 issue for my constituents in Northeast Kansas. Is, we all know Northeast is a great growing economic area, which is wonderful. And obviously we hand out tax abatements to commercial interests to help fuel that economic growth. And the problem is that we're shifting the tax burden unfairly onto our fixed income seniors and disabled veterans. And so I'll be reintroducing that legislation again this year. Once again, we'll be promoting medical cannabis legalization. Also, I appreciate the comments earlier, I believe, by the school district. I'm very much concerned about mental health issues throughout this state. Once again, we'll be reintroducing the Christy L. Bennett Mental Health Parity Act. Despite what we have written in the statute, we do not have mental health parity in this state. And we need to get on that and recognize those challenges for what they are. Very briefly, want to follow up on a couple things. And Paul Davis, Hugh Carter, here's where I need your help. First, we talk about COVID. I really would like your guys' input on basically our frontline workers. I'm concerned once again, we don't have final resolution regarding the Supreme Court in the 6th edition on AMA impairment guidelines. I have a stinking suspicion that our frontline workers during COVID are even more exposed to obviously harm to their bodies. And I'm concerned about the economic devastation to them currently having the 6th edition in place. Would like your thoughts on repealing back to the 4th as well, because I do intend to introduce legislation to do that. And then finally, briefly, I'm very interested in funding for the Peasley Tech Center. I guess my question is Paul, Hugh, did you guys talk to Department of Commerce about getting funding for that? What is the annual ask or revenues that we need to fund that? Is there a chance we can still do that through the state?
Thank you, Tom. Is that, are you finished there, or did you want to?
No, it's a question. What is the cost of the Peasley Tech Center annually?
If you wouldn't mind, I'd love to follow up with you on that and your earlier question related to workforce.
Okay, we'll take that offline. That's fine.
Today.
Anyway, okay. Please reach out to me if you have any questions, particularly on commerce or tax. Please know I will try to do no harm. Happy New Year, folks. Take care.
Thanks so much, Tom. We'll be in touch today on those issues. Appreciate it. And next, we will move along to Representative Barbara Ballard.
Good morning. Thank you, and Happy New Year to all of you. Again, this year, I'm on Appropriations, Social Services, and I'm a ranking member on that. Transportation, CanCare Oversight. Remember, that's our privatized Medicaid. And my new committee this time is redistricting, and that's something we do every 10 years. Based on the census and our population in the state. I want to thank all of you for your reports. You know, having served on the school board for 8 years, I understand what those issues really are, as I think all of my legislative friends do. It's extremely important. And yesterday, our delegation, some of us met on Zoom for the first time with 9 different Lawrence organizations, and we heard their concerns and the things that they liked, and they thanked us for some of the things we did as well. And we do that every year, and we know when we after we meet them, we know we're about to go to the legislature. I would like to just comment on not repeating things, but unemployment and Department of Labor, because we've received so many phone calls. There are so many people in our state are unemployed that are desperately looking for those checks to come into them. And they have kept us pretty busy. And I know people have complained about the Department of Labor, but they have really increased their staff by over 125. They've been trying to keep up. They're working long hours. I know that doesn't help the person that really needs to have their checks, but I do want people to know that Department of Labor is really trying, and as legislators, we are trying as well. The word unprecedented has been used so often, and I'm going to use it again because our session in the legislature will be just that. We will be using all of our space in order to social distance, and we'll be using the galleries, we'll be using the floor. We may not even have pages this year, and we'll be using their space. We will not have interns this year, so everything will look different. But we will have legislature and try to get our business done. All 13 of the committee rooms will be equipped so that public can have participation, and that will be different. We may not be going there every day, but we will be voting at least once a week. I'm lucky and I'm fortunate. I serve on leadership. That's 6 of your elected officials on both sides by your own caucus. So we've been kept abreast of what's going on, and we've been working really hard in that respect. Other things I would just like you to know, and I realize about our time, is that this summer we had a mental health modernization committee, and I was on that committee because I also serve on social services. And that mental health committee was one of the best committees I have ever served on in the legislature. We worked all summer, and we formed 3 working groups, and we made our own recommendations, and the recommendations were what we needed to do immediately, what we would try to do in the 2 and 3 year mark, and the other was how much longer would it take us to do that. I think you will find if we can get some of these recommendations, that will improve our mental health in this state tremendously. We have community mental health centers, but they take everybody regardless of ability to pay, and yet sometimes we don't fund them, and that's a legislative initiative that was made many years ago. I would just say to you, my goals, of course, is Medicaid expansion. They will fight us all the way because they don't want it, but that could be 150,000 people that could be insured, and I think that's extremely important. So we will be pushing for that. Social services is always in our need, and I just told you about our mental health. One of the things we're happy about, social services asked also the Department of KDET to look at Osawatomie, our mental health facility that no one can check themselves in. Is it voluntary unless a judge or doctor order or whatever? Well, one of the things they worked on with the comprehensive plan, and hopefully if things stay on target, by July of 2021, Osawatomie will be available for other people to use, and it will not be closed. And that's a really big one for us. And that's one that I initiated, that I pushed, and my colleagues backed it because they know how important it is. And so we're very pleased with that. I would also say that you don't hear much about it, but getting guns off campus is still a top priority for me. Faculty do not want it. Parents have voiced their concerns for it, and I will continue to push for that and offer legislation as well. So I would say to you, It is still exciting after all of these years to serve in the legislature because every year is different. And we try our best to make a difference. But it is one of the greatest honors of my life to be able to do this on behalf of all Kansans, but especially our Lawrence community. And I want to thank Chamber and all of you for being here this morning, but especially I want you to know I heard your reports and we will do the best job we can. Happy New Year.
Thank you, Senator. Next speaker will be Representative Boog Heiberger.
Well, thank you for having us here again today. This comes the time of the year when I traditionally ask Paul Davis if he would like his job back. Going once, twice, hearing none, I guess I'm in again. So I serve on the House Federal and State Affairs Committee, which John Wilson used to refer to as God, Gays, Guns, and Gambling. So it's never a dull moment there. I serve on the House Judiciary. I'm ranking Democrat on the Corrections and Juvenile Justice Committee, and now the ranking Democrat on the Rules Committee, and recently been appointed to the Kansas Sentencing Commission. So as a number of speakers alluded to today, criminal justice reform is going to be a major issue in the upcoming session. There's bipartisan support for a lot of things. I was on a conference call yesterday with a number of stakeholders. We'll be getting bills from 4 or 5 different groups, up to 100 different initiatives. We're going to try to prioritize those and consolidate some, because the real difficulty is going to be finding enough time to deal with everything. There's just not going to be enough committee time to deal with all the things that are on the table. There's so many things left over from last year, and then new things coming from the Criminal Justice Reform Commission, Sentencing Commission, and other groups. But for the first time in many, many years, Kansas prison system is not over capacity. And we were able to bring our prisoners home from Arizona, because of COVID. Last numbers I heard, we were our total capacity is a little over 10,000, and we're in the low 9,000s right now. And we're projected to stay under capacity for quite some time. But still, I think there's a strong appetite for reducing our prison population even more over the long run. We'll see measures like increasing good time and program credits, reducing probation times for people who follow their probation rules. As I think Mayor Finkeldei alluded to, there will be bills to lower penalties for low-level drug crimes and to make a number of drug convictions, make them presumptive probation rather than presumptive prison. It will be expanded use of drug treatment rather than incarceration. A lot of bills in that area. The real key, some of the things we're going to do, potentially put more, when we lower sentences, we potentially drive more people down into the misdemeanor level, which potentially puts more pressure on the county jail. That's something we need to keep an eye on. And as we move more to probation, then that's puts pressure on community corrections and probation services. And so we need to be sure that funding, when we increase that, demand, we need to pay attention to increasing that funding. So anyway, I have a number of initiatives of continuing this year. One will be a revenue neutral bill to eliminate the state food sales tax and replace it with 3 new upper income tax brackets. I'm not sure that will even get a hearing, but we're going to put it on the table anyway to try to help reduce the economic disparity in our current economy. I have other things, but I'm not going to take your time. If you have any questions about any criminal justice reform activities or suggestions, please don't hesitate to contact me. I think it's something we're going to see some real bipartisan cooperation on this year and making progress. And so I'm hopeful for that. And thank you again.
Thank you, Boog, and we'll definitely be in touch on that criminal justice issues. Appreciate that. And finally, next we have Representative Christina Haswood.
Hello, thank you so much for inviting me here today. A little bit about me. I was born and raised in Lawrence. I'm Native American, proud product of the K-12 public school systems. My background's in public health and research, so I'm extremely excited to be here today. I want to thank everybody here for, when COVID-19 hit, it really kind of tore our community, but I believe one of the best things that happened was we all came together, and even I volunteered with the school free lunch distribution programs. I recently just volunteered at the winter community shelter and looking more ways to get involved fixing the issue of houselessness in our community. I think we all came together, so I appreciate every single one of you today. I'm on the committees of Water Committee, Health and Human Services, Agriculture, and I'm on call for the state and tribal committees. I've already co-sponsored 3 pre-filed bills, one with Representative Heiberger on changing Columbus Day to Indigenous Peoples Day, supporting missing Indigenous Peoples bill, and working closely with our school board member, Carol Cudio-Blackwood. Thank you so much. I look forward to continue working with you on Indigenous issues as well as increasing minimum wage up to $15 with a 6-year span. And this on Saturday, I'm holding a listening session. I really want to hear from my constituents. So if any of you guys have any, constituents in my district, I would love for them to join, or you guys want to join on their behalf. This Saturday at 2 p.m., shoot me an email. I can send you the Zoom link. I will be joined with Representative Eileen Horn, who I am getting the baton from her, and she's really helping me out with this new position. But this will be this Saturday on Zoom. I am anticipating, everything that will be a little difficult this legislative session, but I'm excited to have the support of my community. And feel free to always contact me, message me on social media, get a hold of me, either way that works best for you. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Representative Haswood. And finally, Representative Mike Amix.
Hugh, thank you very much, and everyone who's attending today. The committees that I serve on are the same ones as last year. It's local government, higher education budget, and general government budget, which I'm the new ranking member of that committee. My priorities are pretty simple. When I stop and I listen to the number of people throughout this community and throughout the county, it seems to me that Medicaid expansion is still the #1 priority of not only our community, but statewide. Infrastructure is always going to be high on the list of things that I'm involved with. No secret, as somebody who represents the 45th district and the expansion of the western leg of the South Lawrence Trafficway runs entirely through my district. It's something that I'm going to continue to push for and to make sure that remain highly in support of the Eisenhower transportation plan. Big supporter of expansion and broadband. That to me makes all the sense in the world. It really helps connect people throughout our state, and it gives those opportunities that are so needed to make sure that we're able to run business, run schools, everything that we need. Going back to the transportation plan, one of the things that I'm extremely in favor of is continue to push for the name remaining of the Lecompton interchange, making sure that remains intact. I think that is so important and shows that one of our smaller communities in the county stepping up and being in support of something that is extremely important, not only to Lawrence, but a small community like Lecompton, and making sure that economic development is something that is important to them. And as we look at the territorial capital and wanting to have visitors stop in and see our history and where things really began. We have talked about so many things this morning, and I want to thank everybody for sending your priority statements out and your legislative agendas for us. I had the opportunity to start going through those after our Zoom meetings yesterday afternoon, and there is a lot of good things there. I realized that I had the opportunity to sit in 2 of those positions, asking legislators in the past to do no harm. I guess that's one of my jobs now, and something that I take pretty serious. There are a couple of bills that that I'm working on. The Peasley Tech bill and the the Training District Act. I think that is something that's extremely important to this community and workforce. As we look at the needs of the community, it is so important to get folks as they're coming through, either young folks or whoever it may be, being able to get certified in something that's going to be able to help them get a job. when we see the track record of Peasley Tech so far, and the expansion of that enrollment, somebody that was on the board long ago when we first started wondered, we start out, with maybe 100 young people, and all of a sudden the enrollment is just out of this world. So it's something that I think is important to get behind. Sometimes I get a little bit anxious, so I file some things, and I'm already having to make amendments. So anyway, it's really a positive thing that's going on here. So I hope to have that all done early on. There's a township bill that I'm working on also that allows for property to be purchased with allowing things to go through a protest period to be able to force an election. So a number of things going on. I'm in support of a number of the things that have been brought forward today. Obviously, with higher education budget and general government budget, I'm going to spend a lot of time looking at a whole lot of numbers throughout this session, but hopefully things that are going to be able to make an impact on so many people throughout our community and throughout our state. Thank you all very much. It's really an honor and privilege to be able to serve in this position and be able to affect so many people. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Folks, it looks like we are running right up to the allotted time for the event. If you have questions, though, please feel free to send those to me. Also, on the Chamber website under our government section, we have all of the contact information for all 6 of our state delegates, but we are happy to kind of be that go-between to get you answers or connected, so don't hesitate to do that. I also want to mention that I didn't realize that our Zoom had a max of 100 set up today. So we hit that 100 mark. I got a couple of emails. I think we have a few that were not able to sign on. So I just want to remind you that we are sending out, you will see a recording of this event. I think Lindsay's also going to break up in some bite-sized pieces and communicate some highlights here and there. So keep an eye out and please share this with others. We know there's a high interest in this session and in this particular event that we just had. So thank you very much for doing that. Again, thank you so much, Senators Francisco and Holland, Representatives Ballard, Heiberger, Haswood, Amix. We sincerely appreciate your accessibility, your willingness to work with us. And I also want to, one more time, thank our sponsor, Black Hills Energy. Stephen Cowan and James Williams, both been great partners. And we're thrilled now to have on our board of directors, Mario Gradius. So appreciate your partnership. Thank you all for taking the time today, and keep up the great work. Take care.